The first thing Darren says in this book is, "I hate these bloody tunnels," which I thought was a funny reference to the title of Book 3, Tunnels of Blood.
Argofont Book Review, Argofont Book Review.
Darren, Mr. Crepsley, and Harkat have spent the past 6 months searching for a group of vampaneze. They have found no clues whatsoever. I hate to say this, but maybe they're not good hunters. The disappointing search is interrupted by a school inspector. Someone forged documents showing Darren is 15 years old. The inspector wants to know why Darren isn't in school. Mr. Crepsley thinks they should skip town, but Darren wants to stay. After all, what could possibly go wrong when an immortal vampire attends high school? A lot, as it turns out. Darren remembers nothing from his classes 15 years ago, so he's on the verge of flunking. The other kids think Darren is weird, so they avoid him. Part of me wishes Darren had tried talking to the other kids with a bunch of old slang, because that would have been hilarious. Darren is shocked that his English teacher is his old girlfriend, Debbie Hemlock. Debbie instantly recognizes him because he looks the exact same. Darren lies and says that's because he has a rare aging disease. Debbie and Darren meet regularly at her apartment. She helps tutor him, and they get very close. Darren wants to restart their old romance, so he tries kissing her. Debbie is horrified, because even though they're the same age, he is still her student. It would be horrendously inappropriate for them to date. That night, Darren's attacked in an alleyway by a hook-handed vampaneze. He's rescued by a man in black. It's his best friend, Steve Leopard. As Steve promised in Book 1, he became a vampire hunter. Sort of. At first, he was fueled by anger and obsessed with getting revenge on Mr. Crepsley for saying he has evil blood. After a while, Steve realized vampires aren't so bad. It's the vampaneze who are the dangerous ones. So he's a vampaneze hunter. He's a much better hunter than our heroes. He's killed a half-dozen vampaneze so far. He figured out which sewer tunnels the vampaneze are using because he put tripwires on all the nearby sewer entrances. Why didn't Darren think of that? Darren is forced to tell Debbie the truth about vampires when her neighbors are killed. Debbie agrees to join their vampaneze hunting group. Prince Vancha rejoins the group around this time. He's extra flirty with Debbie, much to Darren's displeasure. Our heroes realize the vampaneze will probably target Darren's best friend at school. There's an unpleasant moment when Steve argues they should purposely sacrifice the student's life. Debbie refuses to let innocent people die in order to win the battle. Sure enough, the hook-handed vampaneze tries to kill Darren's classmate. Our heroes secretly follow him back to the vampaneze home base, which has 10 vampaneze and 14 humans. So our heroes are greatly outnumbered. It's almost certain they will die. The hook-handed vampaneze reveals he's secretly RV from Book 2. Not to be outdone, Steve reveals he's secretly the villain. He's the one who signed Darren up for school as part of his complex scheme to lure our heroes into a trap. A big fight breaks out. Like the previous book, Darren mostly avoids doing any real fighting. He knocks Steve to the ground, but before he can hurt Steve, he's distracted by RV. RV takes Debbie as a hostage and escapes. The vampaneze lord is there during this battle. Disappointingly, he doesn't do anything. He hides under a hooded robe and says nothing. He watches the battle for a bit, then walks away. I expected more from the main villain of the trilogy. Ganon calls a halt to the battle. He graciously gives our heroes a chance to run for the sewer exit. He even gives them a 15-minute head start. It's like he wants our heroes to escape. The end. Post-book follow-up. I really liked this book. I enjoyed the idea of Darren going back to high school, which hit a nice balance between funny and dramatic. I liked it so much, I wish that segment had gone on a lot longer. I would be totally satisfied if that had been the entire book. I also like seeing Debbie and Steve return to the series. Between them and RV, it feels like this book went out of its way to include as many characters from the original trilogy as possible. I think it's interesting to see all of these characters as adults when Darren hasn't aged. Technically, he's in his 30s, but he doesn't sound or act very different from the way he was in book 1. The only thing I didn't like so much was the ending. Our heroes avoid certain death because the villains give up and let them escape unharmed. That felt like a cheater solution to get our heroes out of an impossible death trap. The Vampaneze Lord has not made for a good villain so far. What was the point of even having him appear when all he does is stand in place and casually stroll away? I'm assuming he hasn't talked or shown his face because the trilogy is saving his true identity for a big revelation scene in the next book. I'll reserve judgment until then, but as things stand now, the Vampaneze Lord has been a waste of a villain. I like this book way more than the previous one. This is the first time Darren has interacted with normal humans since book 3. I'm pretty sure I like that better than all of the vampire stuff. I give Cirque du Freak number 8, Allies of the Night, a 9 out of 10.